You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
Hello! Hey, I'm back. How's it going, everybody? Sorry for the delay on this one. My internet provider decided that I didn't need internet anymore for launch day of this podcast, apparently, which is obviously a little bit frustrating, but it's here now, so here you go. And before we get too far into it, I wanted to mention Sinusoid custom instrument cables. So whatever you need, those guys got you. You need some fresh, pancake cables? They can make that for you, for your pedal board. Do you need some new instrument leads? Do you need speaker cables? They got the Sasquatch, the most massive, huge, and beefy speaker cable on the market. And best of all, they come with a 100-year warranty. And so if anything should ever go wrong within 100 years, you will be covered. So, until we get some alien technology, I think you're gonna be dialed with that. So make sure you go to sinusoid.com and check them out. And I also have to tell you about Gun Street Wiring Shop, based out of Bend, Oregon, making custom wiring harnesses for your guitars. And when I say custom, I mean custom. So they got standard traditional 50s wiring or modern wiring or whatever. That's all available. But Sean's getting crazy. He was talking about adding all kinds of stuff that I didn't even know was a thing into guitar wiring circuits. So if you need a custom job, he's the man for the job. He's always learning and figuring out new things he can do with the wiring to squeeze even more tone out of some of your favorite instruments. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com, check out everything that he has to offer, and treat yourself. One last thing before we get into the episode, I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to all of you who've been using tonemob.com/reverb for all of your reverb.com activity. So if you haven't heard of that before, if you click through that link, tonemob.com/reverb, the link's in the show notes, you will just do all your normal reverb.com shopping. So, or buying, selling, anything you do on there. If you do it through that link, it helps keep the show going. And a lot of you have been really responsive to that, and I thank you very much for that. And if we keep going at the rate that it has been going, we'll have covered all the server costs and hosting stuff and domain name stuff and all that for the year here in the next month or so. And so huge thank you to everyone who's done that. And if for some reason you've never heard of reverb.com before, why did I say it like that? Reverb.com, like it was a weird thing. Anyway, if you've never heard of reverb.com before, if you just simply go there through tonemob.com/reverb and sign up, you actually help out the show as well. So if you check out that link, again, huge thank you to everyone who's done that. And it's still up and running, still cooking. So without further ado, we'll get on with the show. Actually, I just lied to you. I know I said that was the last thing, but there's one more thing. You'll hear in the early part of this episode, there's some foot taps, is what it is. It's probably hard to figure out what it is, but it's foot tapping from John. This is his first podcast, so a lot of people get a little anxious at first, but he settled right on in, and everything was groovy after the first couple minutes. So if you're hearing that, no, you're not going crazy. There is a little something, and I took out what I could in post, but it was a little bit too much to chop up his voice and make it sound all dumb. So that's what you're hearing. You're not going crazy, and they go away pretty soon. So here you go. Now on with the show. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the ToneMob.com podcast, the show about guitar tone and the people behind it. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today I have John Sanchez from Warehouse Guitar Speakers and AllPedal. What's going on, man?
Hey, Blake. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Yeah, dude. Good to, it's always nice to find a fellow Portland gear junkie / business guy.
Yeah. Well, there's no shortage of us around here.
We can share. Well, I mean, yeah, I find more and more all the time.
Right?
It's nice, though, we can share our woes and frustrations. And,
Yep.
and also the glory.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, let's get into it. Let's tell people who you are. You've got a decent backstory. You can start with, what made you start picking up the guitar and then how did it slide into where you are today?
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I guess we all, you grow up listening to the radio and I was part of the MTV generation when that came on. You see these performers and you hear the music and there's just a response to that that's really exciting and undeniable, and you just get drawn to it. And so in my teen years, I finally decided to start playing guitar. After I started when I was 16 years old, and it was 23 when I started working at a local music store.
Okay.
And from there, I was there for about 6 years. Moved down to New York City. Worked at Manny's for about a year.
Oh, nice.
And worked at the distributor for Celestion and in Farmingdale, Long Island. I was there again for about 6 years. They lost the contract. Then Celestion made me an offer to come on as a direct employee, but I had to move to Jersey. So I lived in Jersey for 5 years. We parted ways a couple of years ago, and now I work been with WGS and AllPedal ever since.
Oh, nice. Nicely done.
Yeah.
Nice. So when you say part of the MTV generation, who are some of your big kind of inspirations?
Well, so initially, you see, Eddie Van Halen was just such a just over the top visual. You see this rock band and all this energy and all these amazing riffs coming out of that guitar. And there's some other there. It was very confusing as a young man seeing these grown men wearing mascara and fishnets and but still trying to act like they're super masculine. It was very bizarre.
Yeah, it's always been very confusing.
It was
right?
very confusing. So while I like some of those riffs, it was really, Eddie Van Halen and some of the classic Led Zeppelin, AC/DC. But even, Robert Cray, John Lee Hooker, which is, wasn't really part of the MTV generation, but just in terms of inspiring guitar players that drew me to the instrument.
Right. You remember what the first guitar you had was?
So the first guitar I had was, there was a store at this place, at this whole dilapidated shopping center, Dutchess Mall, called Service Merchandise, and they had this real shoddy Harmony, and it was just terrible. Barely was holding together. So I had that, but I was about 11 or 12 when I got that, and it was just such a difficult instrument to play. And it's constantly going out of tune. It's just really frustrating. So that didn't last long. And the next, it was a Yamaha Pacifica.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Hot pink. I still got it.
Yes. You do?
Yeah.
Have you made any mods to it? Or is it still stock?
No, it's got a Duncan Invader in the bridge. I forgot what's in the neck position, but it weighs like 2 pounds. It's got locking, these weird primitive locking tuners and really fast neck, but it weighs nothing. It's really strange.
I'd love to see that thing.
Oh yeah, I'll bring it.
That sounds so fun. Such a good time. So you started working at. I may have got this twisted in my head. You started working at Manny's. Was that your first place?
No, Alto Music.
Alto. Okay.
In New York.
Cool.
Upstate New York.
I've always had this weird kind of itch that I don't want to do it for a long time, but I want to work in a guitar store for a little bit, just because it's like one side of the industry that I only know as a consumer.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? I would
Okay.
kind of like to see, and like all the guys that work in retail have for a long time, like all the ones that I know have the craziest stories, usually about customers. Like,
Sure.
this guy from Dubai came in and bought, a $4 billion guitar or something. They always have these crazy stories, and I was like, I'd like to work in a music store for like 6 months and just see. I know that there's not very many music stores that want an employee for only 6 months.
Well, I mean, there is high turnover. Guys just want to get in there sometimes and get a store discount. They got gear to get, or it's Manny's was difficult. They paid on a draw, so I forgot what my weekly paycheck was, but it was less than $250.
Really?
And after 4 weeks, all of your sales are totaled, and whatever I forgot what the number was, but you get a commission above a certain number, and if you don't hit that number, you don't get a commission.
Oh man!
And in New York City,
that's rough.
And they had it; they knew exactly what they were doing. So there was anywhere from 2 to 4 other guys on the sales floor at any given time. So you got all these guys out there trying to get a sale, trying to eat, and it can be really, you have to be on your toes and looking for a customer all the time.
That seems rough, and it also seems rough as it seems like a very old school kind of mentality that like I feel like that model almost needs to die because customers don't like those kind of experiences anymore.
Exactly. So I forgot what shop it was. But somebody told me about a shop in California where the commissions are shared, and the benefit of that is that each department works as a team. So
right.
It's everybody wants to make sure everyone's being helped. They're getting the customer service they need, and they're closing sales because everyone benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if there's someone that isn't pulling their weight, they're gone.
Yeah,
But when I worked at Manny's, it was owned by Sam Ash. I forgot when they bought the.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
The Goldrich family, Manny Goldrich, the family owned the building, I believe, but Sam Ash bought the Manny's brand.
Gotcha.
So that's
do they still own it?
No, I believe that whole block is gone.
It is?
Yeah, Rudy's, everything is gone. Yeah.
Oh wow.
And I think it's the Rockefeller Group, which is a real estate
Mm-hmm.
development group. They've been trying to get in there for quite some time, and they finally did.
Yeah, it seemed like when I went to New York here, there was a lot of I can't remember what the other really famous shop I did go to, and they were closing. Man, I can't remember the name of it, and I feel like an idiot.
It wasn't Rudy's?
I don't think it was Rudy's. This was just a couple years ago. 2 years ago is when I went there.
Because he had a spot kind of diagonal across from Manny's.
Okay.
And he several years ago, he got another location somewhere in Soho.
Okay.
Because
it might have been Rudy's, but whatever it was closing. And but it was the first time I seen an original D'Angelico. And like,
oh wow,
yeah, and
that could have been Rudy's. He definitely has the real deal.
It might have been Rudy's. I have to go back in my Instagram.
48th Street?
Was it It might have been 48th. I went to 48th Street, but I can't remember if
Music Row. That's where all these shops were.
Okay, I definitely went to 48th Street. Maybe that's the one I'm thinking of. But one of them I went to was closing, or I couldn't get to it because it was closed. Or
sure,
I'll have to look in Instagram and find it.
Okay.
It remembers better than I do. I put a post up about it. I was like, look at this. This is insane. I never thought I would see one.
What was the price?
Oh, I didn't even bother to look.
You didn't look, yeah.
It's
5 figures.
It's probably there again. It's probably on Instagram.
Sure.
It was crazy, of course. I mean, it's not crazy because there's only so many of them, but you and I are not going to be making that purchase anytime soon.
No, we're not.
No, interesting.
Sadly.
So when you were working for Celestion, was that sort of or was it, I mean, it could have happened when you were at the distributor too. Was that sort of a crash course in speakers, or did you
No, yeah, it started at the distributor. I started reconing when I was at the distributor.
Okay.
So, yeah, there was some training, but, not much. It's a lot of trial by fire, especially when you're the only one in that facility doing that, and the direct Celestion employees are across the pond or scattered in the U.S.
Right.
So that place that I worked at, they did lighting, they did pro audio monitors. It wasn't just
okay.
It was just one of the things that they did. So
gotcha. So I need you to educate me on speakers because
Sure.
I honestly I know quite a bit about a few things in the guitar world, but I don't know hardly anything about speakers. I just know if I plug into a cab and I think it sounds good, then we're dialed. All right, sounds good. But like, what makes what kind of give us the overall crash course as much as you can in audio form?
So I'll approach it from a perspective that'll help people kind of qualify their needs, as opposed to really getting into the guts and anatomy of a speaker.
Okay.
I mean, there'll be some of that, but it hopefully this will help people understand when they're looking at the specs of a build a speaker and how that they can apply that to their rig, and if that's going to help remedy what they're looking for. So basically, there's 3 different magnet materials being used in electric guitar speakers. So you have the traditional ceramic or ferrite, and usually with 12-inch speakers, those are used in 2 sizes: an M and an H. And M is medium 35-ounce magnet, and the H is the heavy 48 or 50-ounce magnet.
Okay.
Some of the eminent stuff is a little bit heavier. And Alnico, which is highly regarded as one of the more musical materials for electric guitar. Often referred to as being bell-like and chimey in the top end. Having a really complex mid-range, and just a really robust voicing. And the past, I don't know, 15 years, maybe Neo has come into the scene for electric guitar, and it's come a long way, but it isn't the most flattering material for the warm mid-range voicing of an electric guitar. It's getting there, but I still think there's still some development needed. It's very lightweight, it's very powerful, very efficient, really fast. But it's been more flattering for pro audio and bass. Getting that warm voicing with electric guitar with Neo, it's like I said, it's getting there, but still got some more work to do, I think, but until it can be really compared to the sound and feel of a ceramic driver.
Interesting.
So have you played any Neos?
Not that I knew of.
Okay.
I wasn't aware that I was playing them. If I was playing them.
You would. I mean, they're very articulate, very crisp sounding speakers, and like I said, super responsive, really fast.
Gotcha. So there's not much give to those things.
No, they're not very forgiving. Not very forgiving at all.
Which makes sense in bass and pro audio applications. That's what you want.
Absolutely. And with those frequencies of a bass guitar, it helps to really round out what Neo's lacking. And live sound stuff being linear, it's complementing to just reproduce what it's being fed.
Why do you think that there's been a push to use Neo in guitar? Is it just to do something different, or is it
the weight relief? So you can very efficiently save 5 pounds on a 12-inch speaker. So it's weight relief. It's as we talked about earlier, we're not seeing 412s nearly as much as we did 15 years ago. Even they're going away. People are still using them, but PAs have gotten so affordable, and even just tiny little rooms have a little PA you can mic up your Pro Junior and be heard very easily.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Some of these smaller rigs that smaller a 210 combo, they can be really heavy. So being able to save 5 pounds a speaker, shave 10 pounds off a 212 cab or a 212 combo, that's
quite a bit.
Significant. Yeah. So that's the big appeal is if when a manufacturer is able to bring a Neo driver to market that allows you to save weight without compromising tone, that's really going to be a big deal.
Gotcha. Interesting. Was that a foreshadowing of something that maybe
I think we're all kind of chasing that a little bit.
Okay.
We're absolutely developing Neo right now, without question. So.
Nice. So that kind of brings me to the much discussed, like the cone material. There's hemp cones and other things. So I don't know anything about it.
And that is often referred to as probably the dark art of the speaker world, because depending on the application, the cone can have anywhere from 25 to 40 some odd ingredients in the cone, depending on the application. So it's not just the mixture of that pulp material; it's also how it's cured. If that cone isn't pressed properly and also cured properly in the right temperature, it's going to be off. It's
interesting.
Yeah.
So it's cured on like the frame. Is that...
No. I'm just talking about the cone manufacturers themselves.
Gotcha.
So, they get the mixture.
Gotcha.
That has to be right. They press it, and then that pressed cone has to be cured in the proper temperature and just be left alone.
Interesting.
Set right, and if anything's off in that process, you'll be able to measure it and hear it in the cone.
That's very very interesting.
So. We offer, something we don't see that often these days, a smooth cone.
Okay.
So we have a couple drivers where, and you can even special order where you have a smooth cone like they did in the 50s and 60s. And what that does is if you have an overly bright amp and you don't really want to do any circuit mods to it, you can put this speaker in and it will really round off some of those highs and warm it up a bit and just make it much more pleasing to play without hurting your ears.
And is that straight from the material itself, or is it actually like the texture of it? Like I'm asking very newbie questions.
No, please.
So like with a smooth cone, is it simply a function of it being smooth that gives it those characteristics, or is it?
It's both. It's both. The recipe of the pulp and the fact that it's smooth.
Interesting.
So, what else? Yeah, so and then also the dust caps. So you'll see.
I was about to go there.
Yeah, traditional, smaller dust caps, and then wide, flat dust caps. So smaller dust caps, you're going to get more top end presence. The wider, flat dust caps can roll off the highs a little bit and polish up that top end a bit.
Okay.
If you get a driver, if you're designing a driver and it's a bit much in the top end, you could put a wide, flat cap on there and tame that a bit.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I was gonna go there because that's something I never really thought too much about. But we were looking at this old Sun 2x12 that I have earlier before we were recording, and you were like, "Oh, it's got aluminum dust caps," and I was like, I almost asked you, but now I'm gonna ask you.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with those. There are a lot of like slide players and some really clean high headroom country twang guys that love the aluminum dust cap. I personally, I've only played a few amps with them and very briefly. But you don't see that much anymore. There aren't a lot of manufacturers doing that. It's kind of a lost art there.
Yeah. Well, and that's an old, like I said, late 70s cab. So yeah, it's been around for a while. I always thought like you can't see it super well in the cab, but when you can, I'm like, man, that looks cool.
It does kind of look cool. Yeah. Absolutely.
Interesting. So it seems almost somewhat akin, not exactly, but somewhat akin to manufacturing pickups, in that they're obviously not the same thing, but it's all about kind of the final recipe of ingredients. Like the pickups, construction is more or less the same for all of them, but it's actually the combination of things that
or an acoustic guitar.
Yeah,
every point of that build, the materials, the thickness of the top, back, and sides, the bridge, the bracing, how that acoustic instrument is put together, every bit, the nut, all of that will absolutely affect the tone of that instrument. And the same can be said for a speaker. So you have your motor, it's fixed to the basket. You have your voice coil, and the voice coils are a variety of different materials. And those different materials come in different thicknesses, and you can have different coil windings. All of those variables will absolutely affect the tone and voicing of the speaker.
Yeah, in a measurable way. Like not just, I think I hear this.
Absolutely.
It's very obvious.
Absolutely, without question. So, there's one thing that's I haven't really been able to discern, and that's the gasket material. So traditionally, there's either the foam, cork, or hard paper. So I haven't really done any A/B tests with a few builds being exactly the same, with the exception of the gasket material.
Right.
And that's one thing where I try to convey to some OEMs that want to do something custom and they're getting hung up on certain things like that. It's like, Yes, just because it is measurable, the difference, it doesn't mean it's audible by the human ear.
Right.
Right. Just because you can use your some sort of test tool to measure those differences, doesn't mean you're going to hear it. Don't hear with your eyes. And sometimes these engineers get really caught up in looking at these data sheets, and they think they can hear what they're reading. And depending on the situation, yes, but a lot of times it's, they're just going nuts trying to, make sure they develop, their development goes in the right direction. And they're looking at these data sheets. It's just because it's measurable does not mean it's audible.
I mean, yeah, psychoacoustics is a big,
real
absolutely. Thing. Like, I am crazy guilty of it. It's like, I guarantee you, if you took two pedals that were identical circuits, and one was more aesthetically pleasing to me,
right,
and told me they were different,
right,
I would be like, yeah, that sounds different.
Well, the Celestian blackbacks of this, or the different color backs of the 70s, perfect example. You still see people in the forums adamant that they are different than the other builds. The only thing that's different is the color of that plastic on the back of the speaker. There is no other difference. But people are adamant that they hear it. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. Yeah, and then it's like, if they hear it, then that's really all there is to it.
Yeah, right. We're all guilty of being affected by some sort of placebo.
I'm 100% guilty of it,
in one way or another.
Yeah, I am not a stranger to that effect at all. And I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, we all have our preferences.
Oh, absolutely, without question.
It's like, the red one sounds better. Yeah. Why? Because it's red. Like, don't tell me it's not.
Right. It's color of inspiration, Dan.
So it's a weird thing. I mean, in discussing tone and gear and all these other type of things that we do so often, I feel like we do become more aware of it, and maybe can be a little more objective than the average person,
right.
Maybe.
Right.
Especially, like, not just like somebody who doesn't. I mean, I've said this before. Guys like you and I are the nerdiest of nerds.
Yeah.
Like, the hyper nerds about this particular subject.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Just, I mean, and most people that go to NAMM are too.
Right.
Like, it's a high gathering, like, highly concentrated, distilled. Yeah. Like, there's
it's
people
our
flying.
Yeah,
it is. It's our Comic-Con. Like, I like Comic-Con too. But, like, I'm just a nerd in all ways. But, like, there's people literally flying from across the world to come,
right, to be there, to participate,
hang out and twiddle knobs.
Yeah.
like it's kind of silly, but I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Right.
But I think by being kind of, so aware and so into it on that level, I feel like, not just you and me, but in general,
sure,
most of the people we associate with are kind of aware. I feel like we're paying attention to psychoacoustic things a little bit more than your average Joe.
I think so. And I think we can also make fun of ourselves a little bit and kind of call each other out on some of this nonsense sometimes,
Yeah.
It's just, when the pursuit of tone and how that is, that's riding shotgun with you when you're just developing as a musician as well, and trying to make sure you're implementing the right gear for what you're doing as a musician. It's all part of the process. You know what I mean? I think people sometimes get a little caught up with trying to be current with all these new releases and all the technology. And at the end of the day, you said, working, what it's like working retail. One thing I learned very quickly is, and I love all this gear. Don't get me wrong, but tone is in the bones. Someone told me, and it's very true. I have seen guys come in and play just this ratty, cool-looking beat-up Squire through, an average at best amp, and just make awesome music, because that's all you need is a functioning guitar and some talent, and there you go. Sometimes it doesn't matter what peripherals are around you.
It's true. I have there's some people, and I mean, obviously I'm a horribly addicted gearhead, and so I have some pretty clear bias in that. But like, I've always, there's, like in forums and things, there'll always be that one guy that'd be like, doesn't matter what you buy, you're never going to sound like X, Y, Z. It's all in his hands. It's totally in his hands. And I'm like, yes, sort of. Kind of. Because, I never will sound exactly like that, but my example I always say is like, if it was all in the fingers, if it was all in the hands, then you could play Cannibal Corpse on ukulele.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's what I always say.
Right.
And it's like, because it obviously plays a huge part,
Sure.
in the overall picture. No, you're not going to sound exactly like Jimmy Page, even if you had all of his stuff. You're not. But you can get close-ish.
Right.
A lot closer than you could with the, like a classical guitar or something. Just you have to have certain things to get certain results.
Absolutely.
You don't have to do what I've done though. It's not something I advise. It's not a good move.
Yeah.
Just ask my wife.
Yeah.
But it sure is fun though.
It is.
But we've kind of dove into speakers a little bit, and we can definitely come back to that. But tell me about AllPedal. I know about AllPedal, but I don't think very many of my listeners probably do.
So WGS technically started around 12 years ago. I would say about 10 years ago they were a fully functioning company.
Okay.
And very shortly after that, AllPedal started, and that was part of the motivation was David Young and Brian Wampler. They had a relationship. They were friends, and I think Brian was his demand was starting to increase, and he was looking for options. So I think that was a motivating factor for David Young to start AllPedal was to support the Wampler brand, and they did it for about 7 years, and to date he's dealing with a couple top 10 boutique pedal companies. He does AllPedal does all the KHDK stuff. And they do. I don't think a lot of people have connected those dots that they are indeed under the same roof.
Right.
And they do everything. SMT through hole, full powder coat facility, and direct to substrate graphic printing, all of it. So and we'll be coming out with some kits this year, it looks like. So there'll be like a partial SMT build on the board, and then you install, I think depending on the kit, it's anywhere from 15 to 20 components you have to install. And we're still working out the details, but you may have the option of doing an unfinished or a finished enclosure.
Okay.
So
cool.
There'll be, I think we have 2 that are done, or that we're getting ready to build some inventory. And I think there's 2 more designs being proposed, being developed. So those will be coming out hopefully in a couple months.
Cool. Very cool. That'll be interesting. I think that that being able to reduce the parts count a little bit with this, well, not reduce the parts count, but reduce the parts count that the user has to do.
Right.
It makes it a little less intimidating.
It's deliberately entry level without compromising any boutique tone or anything like that. We wanted something that there was just about anybody with a soldering iron can jump in and get involved in and feel satisfied they did a bit of a build and they have something boutique quality to use when they're done.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool. That should be really fun. Can we talk about what those kits are going to be, or are we still working on them?
No, I got one here. It's a compressor. So the guy that works with us, his name is Justin Simpson, really talented designer. He worked with Wampler when AllPedal was building.
Right.
He's one of his lead designers. Did the Ego compressor, I believe. But he used to live in Washington. His family is involved in the timber industry.
Oh, okay.
But I guess he's been in Paducah for about a year now. I think it was last winter. David convinced him to come out there, and he's been doing AllPedal full time, and he's pretty much busy nonstop. So we're definitely lucky to have him. So compressor is the first one. The next one is an overdrive that he did that sounds phenomenal. And the next one, the other 2 that are on on the horizon. I think there's a fuzz and potentially some sort of modulation. I'm
Cool.
not sure if they're doing a phase or a chorus or whatever, but yeah, something else.
Very cool. Very cool. So AllPedal is are they looking to get more brands, or are they kind of at capacity? Yeah.
No, we're always looking. We always want to grow as well with the industry, and we're not just in competition with other CMs domestically. We're also competing overseas. There's guys getting stuff done overseas, and some of the work is really good, and so is the pricing. So
Right.
So we're constantly trying to position ourselves where there's value for both parties, and the work is top notch, and we're always looking to welcome somebody else into the fold. So.
Gotcha. Very cool. That's an interesting, it's not a line that I know Brian really well, and he's always talked about his days at AllPedal with the fondness, like he's
good.
like
I don't know him that well, but
yeah.
I still think I don't think people realize that they're completely different. They've separated years ago. That Wampler is part of Avi's ETI group and has no involvement with AllPedal. And AllPedal is its own thing that has no involvement with Wampler anymore.
Yeah,
right.
I think that's something that I know on Brian's podcast that he's tried to communicate as well, just because there is confusion there.
Absolutely.
And not that it makes a big difference. They're both great products from either era, but it's just people want to know. Like,
absolutely,
the hyper nerds want to know.
Absolutely, but also if we're, I've heard that there's been some apprehension about, some of these guys that are ready to go to large scale manufacturing. They've been a bit apprehensive coming to AllPedal because they feel like their schematic is going to get in the competitor's hands, and it's like, absolutely not. That's not.
You wouldn't be a very good contract
No, right? Yeah, we wouldn't be around at all.
No,
if that was the case.
No, that's. I do understand some of that fear to a degree, but I feel like, there's a few other guys in the industry, then I've heard the same thing from other builders. Like, I would like to use them, but I'm scared. I'm scared about them seeing my stuff. And I'm like, well, first of all, at the end of the day, you have an overdrive. We can figure out we can figure out an overdrive.
Sure.
We don't need to rip your overdrive off.
Right.
They're completely different days than the Goop circuit days I guess there are still some people doing that, but it's really silly in my opinion. But I don't feel like if you go with a reputable source, I mean, if I went with somebody in China, I'd be super nervous about them ripping it off because they classically do.
Oh, look at EHX and more.
Exactly.
Classic case.
Well, and Moore's I was surprised that it was Moore, because while they've built their whole brand on clones for the most part, lately they've been trying to slide into more advanced things.
Yeah, like the Devin Townsend delay and preamp live.
Yeah, and so I really thought, maybe they're gonna, because the correlation I was drawing between them was like, well, Ibanez, that's all they did in the early days was clone guitars too.
Right. Yeah,
and now they're their own legit, innovative company.
Sure.
So I was hoping that Moore was kind of taking that same path. They started out as somebody I really wasn't interested in supporting, and but maybe they're going to turn a corner and start making their own thing, paving their own way. And then I seen that, and for people who don't know what we're talking about, I guess we didn't explain. If you hadn't read on the forums, Electro Harmonix found that they had been using some of their code Moore had been using Electro Harmonix's code. And it was so blatantly ripped, it included the statement in the code that said, do not copy this and do not use this. So because it was so blatant, Electro Harmonix was actually able to win in court in China. And an American company winning anything in China is, they didn't get that much out of it, but the fact that they won was... It
was close. It was like $90,000 or something like that.
Which I'm sure... It costs EHX.
That takes care of the lawyers.
That much to do it. But the point is at least they got them to stop.
Absolutely.
That's almost a lot of people don't know. It's almost impossible to get a Chinese company to stop doing anything. Yeah. And I'm sure you're painfully aware of that. Especially, I'm sure Celestian does all kinds of things like that happen, right?
Well, people would email us asking for replacement labels because a label fell off their speaker or whatever, and they were very apprehensive about sending labels out because there was counterfeit product out there. I never saw it. I never came across it. I saw a couple pictures here and there. It's not as widespread as as electronics are, but yeah, there is some floating around.
Interesting. It's a weird thing because you and I both know like the gear industry is wonderful, but one thing that it isn't is for the most part, there's a few exceptions, but for the most part, the one thing that it isn't is just like a crazy money making operation.
Right.
So for somebody to go through the effort of cloning stuff, to sell a cheaper version of something that already kind of not struggles to make money, but doesn't have a lot of margin in it.
Yeah.
Is kind of, it's a weird thought process to me. And then when you go down to the basement in Nam and you see 37 Chinese companies that are all selling the exact same pedal with different, slightly different graphics on it.
Yeah, right.
All next to each other and nobody's there. And I'm like, is this really worth the effort? This is a lot of effort.
Where's that stuff going?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's really weird to me. I mean, it has to be going somewhere or they wouldn't be doing it.
Right. But it's just not really in the U.S.,
It's so hard to see.
Right.
Yeah, but I always see those guys down there, and I almost feel bad a little bit for them because I know they're probably just some poor employee, and they just have to sit there by themselves.
Right.
It's like... they're just probably like, this is miserable. Yeah. Nobody's coming over. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of a random aside, I suppose. How did we even get there? I'm not sure.
Down the rabbit hole.
Yes. Yeah. So what are you listening to these days?
I just downloaded the new Rival Sons. Really digging that record. The new On Earth is pretty cool. Dude,
I've been jamming that one.
Yeah, right?
That's great.
That was a nice welcome addition. Getting back into Ghostface Killer.
Nice. Well, why wouldn't you?
Wu-Tang's for the children.
Exactly.
But that new Rival Sons that's been on heavy rotation lately.
Nice.
And I went back to the first Down record too.
Oh, there you go.
Really digging that one.
Nice. You tend to go for heavier stuff most of the time?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah? What are some of your all-times?
Meshuggah. They were a big influence. Carcass, Heartwork. That record was a big one for me. Let's see, when I was in high school, Sepultura, Chaos AD.
Yeah, of course.
Dillinger Escape Plan.
Yeah.
Just bonkers.
It's so insane.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my mind around how, I'm not very good, so there's that. But, I can't wrap my mind around how do they come up with that?
How do they, yeah. Ugh, I have no idea. There was a quote, Ben Wyman was interviewed years ago. And I think the interviewer was asking me, where do you come up with these compositions and how do you try to play them note for note live and remember all that musical information?
Yeah, totally.
And where does that come from? And I think he said something like Paige Hamilton from Helmet, who's also a very accomplished jazz musician as well. He's very, very educated. Said something to Ben like, do your best to learn as much theory and learn educate yourself on the electric guitar as possible, and then forget all of it and just play. And
interesting.
The quote was something like that, and I've heard that from other people. I had a couple of friends that went to Berkeley, and they said, "Look, I love the education. I'm really glad that I invested myself this much into this instrument." But it does change. It does change your approach. When you have all of this information on how to play it properly, you all of a sudden start. You can fall into pitfalls where you're picking up the instrument and kind of, without even realizing it, you're playing within boundaries, and that's not what art is supposed to be. And it's like it's just you have to kind of take all the training that you have and then kind of force yourself to use it to go outside of the boundaries.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I have to remind myself that as educated as I am with the guitar, that this is art and there are no rules. I don't have to play this way because this is how I was taught.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to hear. And it makes perfect sense, you know.
It does make a lot of sense. And I will further justify me buying fuzz pedals instead of learning, you know, I'm going to go with that. That's the excuse I'm going to use. No, I am a lot better than I was, for sure. You know, even when I really started first getting into the gear scene and everything, I'm definitely a lot better player than I was at the time. But I'm still not very good, and I have this weird hesitation with wanting to pursue a little bit of higher learning.
Sure.
Kind of for that reason, and I've said that before, and it sounds like an excuse. I've said it on the podcast, but honestly, like I'm not very good at it, but I do like how I play. I get enjoyment out of it.
And that's the point.
And
right.
so sometimes it's like I should get better, but then sometimes I'm like, yeah, I do have a lot of fun.
And
so,
exactly, and that's what it's all about, you know?
Yeah. So it's like I'm not miserable because I can't shred like Steve Vai.
Yeah, right. But still, you know, tastes change and your ear matures, you mature as a player. Stuff that I liked when I was a kid with, you know, 1,000 notes in a song. I hear it now, I'm still impressed by it, but as opposed to listening to it for, you know, an album or two, I listen to it for a few minutes here and there.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, it's just not the same as, or I don't get the same enjoyment out of it as I do, you know, a well-written song with great grooves and melodies and harmonies. You know, it's just not the same anymore. And people change, people evolve. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I, you know, I definitely did. Like back, you know, in the early 2000s, I was like, if it's not super heavy and there's nobody screaming, it's for like losers, and I'm not gonna listen to it. and even though I was like brought up on like outlaw country and stuff, and I never ever didn't like that, but like. Sure. As a teenager, I was like, rah! Like I'm this aggressive person.
I guess that's the exception with really instrumental players. You know, guys like Brent Mason, Daniel Donato, Red Volker. That kind of shred, I can still just sit there and be like, oh my god, it's
totally
just absurd.
But that's different. That's like how do you explain it? I mean, it's like tasteful shredding.
It is, you know, absolutely. But just that approach, that Daniel Donato kid is just bonkers.
I was just emailing him today.
He's absurd. He's just ridiculous amount of talent. It's great.
He was supposed to come on the podcast several months ago, and it just kind of got lost in the mix. And so I got the thread going back again after NAMM, and he just emailed me back today. He's like, "Yeah, we got to do it." So he's coming on. That's gonna be
awesome.
Really fun. Yeah, I watched him play at the Fender booth. Him and Ariel Posen, who was also just on recently. They were playing together at the Fender booth for a little bit, and I was just like, "Jeez, I give up."
Yeah, I saw him at, was it Third and Lindsley?
Yeah,
in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Third and Lindsley. Years ago at a Little Walter Tube Amps party, and it's just, I saw, you know, clips and videos of him prior to that, but to see him live, it's just a phenomenal talent. And how old is he? Was it 25 or something like that?
Something like that. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I think he started playing. I could be making this up, but what I was told is he started playing like on Broadway in Nashville when he was like, it's like 19 or something. Like,
yeah, I knew he was. And the typical good start with what Robert's Western World.
Yeah, Robert's.
If you start playing playing at that place, you're gonna
go somewhere.
You're going somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, so. that place is one of the last legit spots on Broadway now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of sad, honestly. I don't know how much romanticizing you have of Nashville, or if you've been there much.
I've only been really for Summer NAMM and a few customer visits outside of Summer NAMM. So I've done, I don't know if I've done Winter NAMM about 14 times, maybe Summer NAMM about 10, 12, something like that. But yeah, even just going, if you see how it's physically changed, and then also the people going there.
Yeah.
It's definitely, you know, much more. It's like their Times Square. It's very commercial, very touristy.
Yeah.
I guess to a certain degree, it always has been, but it's since Nashville's been so popular the past 10 years, it's really.
It's
really
like
changed.
it was even weird because I've been there several times, and you've been there more than I have actually, but I have this weird connection to Nashville. I just really like it.
No, sure.
I think it's the only other place in the world I could live other than Portland.
Okay.
Would be Nashville. There's a lot of similarities. Now there were some restaurants I was sitting in, and they were like, "This feels like a hipster Portland place," like
sure, Sure.
But I just really like that town, and to see Broadway change the way it has, and maybe I'm being an old fuddy-duddy, but I'm like, man, I don't want to go to Blake Shelton's place. I want to go,
Right.
I want to go to the legit places, like,
right.
and they're sadly, like, Roberts is one of the last ones.
There
are a lot of those
Roberts,
places.
Tootsie's.
What else? Half
I mean,
of
the
them,
stages that they always have some good talent at the stage. I don't know
course.
how old that place is, but
yeah,
that place is pretty good.
yeah,
But yeah, I saw there were a couple country star establishments
quote
down
unquote
there.
country stars.
there
Don't
was
get me
some of that
started.
down there, right?
Yeah, that drives me insane. Yeah, I mean, me and my wife were down there, and she was like, "Is that what I think it is?" I can't remember which one. Oh, it was the Florida Georgia Line bar. I was like, "Yeah, we're not going in there. I'm not going in there. That's not a place for me at all. My jeans are not bedazzled enough for that bar."
I'm sure you have an Affliction shirt. Stop lying, Blake.
I don't. I'm not gonna lie. I do not have an Affliction shirt. No,
We'll get you one.
we'll get tap out though.
There you go.
Yeah, tap out shirt somewhere. Really small tap
really
out.
small, right?
Yeah. But yeah, it's weird how it's changed. But what is interesting is like it's kind of pushed some of the really interesting musical stuff a little bit off Broadway, and there's some stuff in East Nashville, and like Third and Lindsley's a great spot. It's not on Broadway, but it's close. And there's still some really good spots. The Ryman is like the coolest venue to me.
Right.
I mean, it just sounds so good in there.
Right.
It's ridiculous how good it sounds in there. But yeah, I didn't think we were going to talk about Nashville this week, so can't wait to get back down. I ironically have not been to Summer NAMM. I've been.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've only been to Nashville right around Summer NAMM.
Oh, okay.
Like I went there for a vacation with my parents, and this was the time that we could get off, and it was just after Summer NAMM or just before.
Okay.
And then I had to go down to help a buddy out, and the time that he needed me was just after Summer NAMM. So I was like, I couldn't afford to go for 3 weeks to cover them both,
Sure.
So one of these days, I think this is the year I'll probably get to Summer NAMM, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's a good hang. It's a different energy. It's it's much smaller, a bit more personable.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as loud.
Not as loud.
And the food's better.
Well, yeah, the food's way better. Like that's Anaheim's great for a lot of things, but
yeah,
the food's rough, man.
It can be a little rough.
I mean, there's some good spots. We went to this just opened up, but we went to the Ballast Point Brewing in downtown Disney. That was really tasty.
Oh, I didn't know they did that.
But cha-ching, like you're paying that Disney tax.
So it was like $10 a beer.
Oh, it was more than that. Way more than that.
Really?
Yeah, I think
for a pint, 16 ounce.
Well, they had Ballast Point does a lot of special stuff.
Yeah,
and so it was like, I think the one we really wanted was like $14 for a pint. And it wasn't even like the super barrel aged. It was like
a Sculpin IPA.
It was like that one was a little cheaper. That was around $10, I think, which is ridiculous.
Deal.
Such a deal.
Yeah.
I can go over to the local Plaid Pantry and pick up Sculpin for
exactly
$12 for a 6-pack. But yeah, but the food was really good. It was. I mean, we paid for it, but man, it was actually
the restaurants on Disney are pretty ridiculous. There's some really good restaurants on there.
Yeah. There's also some stinker ones. I went to one and paid $18 for a quesadilla. It was ridiculous.
That's on you, Blake. Paying $18 for a quesadilla.
Well, it was like everything on it.
Yeah,
was like,
right.
Like Tortilla Joe's just isn't a legit operation. I'm sorry.
You got to
it
go
was
for the
fine.
smoked turkey leg. Always go for the turkey leg.
The turkey legs are good. Some people think it's ham. They think it's not really a turkey.
Oh, right.
I did some research into this. It's because they cure it.
Okay.
They cure the turkey leg in a special brine, and then they smoke it.
Okay.
That's why it kind of tastes like ham. Those are so good.
Yeah. Take a nice nap afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Tryptophan kick in.
Oh, yeah. Look it up. Yeah, the food is a lot better in Nashville.
But no, it's not more concentrated, but you don't have to walk, all over the like the Anaheim Convention Center, and everyone's pretty accessible there, and there's a lot of engagement, and it's a good hang.
Yeah, I'm really hoping I can get there this year. It should happen. I don't see anything
getting
currently.
in the way.
Yeah, we should be okay.
It's only a few months away.
I know.
I'll be here before you
know
I
it,
know.
man.
I can't
know.
believe it's 2019 already.
We're sitting here. We're already a month into 2019.
That's
it's
crazy.
February, and
got our first snowfall in Portland.
Yes, we did.
More on the way this weekend.
That's what I hear.
So,
not really looking forward to that, but that's okay. So, yeah. You have some other stuff coming out. We talked about WGS, but
right.
Why don't we get into the other stuff?
So when I was hired, WGS did a great job of putting themselves on the map as a speaker supplier. They have the American Vintage and the British Invasion, two families of products. I believe 32 product SKUs now. But they were looking to go further. And when I was hired, I proposed that we do something new. We don't, and the American Vintage stuff, pretty much all that is, they are original designs. And the British Invasion obviously are more cost effective versions of Celestians, all built by hand in Kentucky. But I propose we come out with something new, a whole new concept, a whole new family of products that don't reference anything past or current from any competitor or anything we've done. We respond to the trends in the market. We respond to the way music has changed and how gear has influenced those changes and influences us as players and what we want to see, what we think. There are what holes we think are in the market that need to be filled. So the brand name I came up with is called Empyrean. And the name is derived from a mathematical calculation called an Empyrean loop. An Empyrean loop is used to determine the amount of energy being produced on a section of a solenoid, which is also a voice coil.
Okay,
right?
gotcha.
So how that's relevant to a speaker is regardless. It doesn't matter how good your guitar or amp is, or the effects, or if you're having a bad day, whatever it is. That speaker is an accurate measure of the creative energy that's being put into it.
Right.
It's undeniable, and it's a very important part of the chain. There's a lot of guys changing pickups and other things, and as much upgrading with upgrading our rigs that we're doing, there's still a lot of guys that aren't doing the speakers, and it's such an important part of your rig. So our goal here was to, and it's been the same goal. It's to exceed the buyer's expectations and give them more value than they're paying for, and consistently provide products that are rewarding to play and inspire you. So that's really what the whole goal with Empyrean loudspeakers is. It's just to, it's a family-owned American company. Everything is built entirely by hand in Kentucky. WGS, Empyrean. There's no factory automation, and we want to, we want to be a part of everyone's musical endeavors, and we want to be, a trusted brand that people rely on. So we're absolutely growing and evolving with the industry, and we hope people respond accordingly.
Cool. So tell me about the Empyrean products, the first ones you're doing, and what kind of, you've obviously had some input into it. So
Sure. So, it's nice to have variety for, a bunch of different players. Everybody has different amps, guitars, and a different sound in their head. But I wanted to come out with a more focused family of products. So to date, there's 6 models total. We will be adding some 10s. All of them are 12s. We will be adding some 10s shortly. And it's pretty much two voicings. So you have the traditional lead spec, 75 hertz. That's the Noble 65 Alnico. And then there's the Revolution M and H. The Revolution 60 is the M. The Revolution 65 is the H mag. And the lower resonance, there's a 55 hertz family of products, the Explorer, Explorer 60, Explorer 65. And the Alnico in that family is the VSOP, which is, it's higher than 55 hertz. It's like a 64 hertz Kurt Mueller cone that we're using in there. But these speakers are what they need to be: incredibly versatile, responsive, full voicings, and they give you what you put into them. They absolutely complement a variety of circuits and playing styles, and the price points were not as expensive as Celestion. We're right around where Eminence is, a little bit more in some cases, but we wanted to position ourselves in the market where this is a higher end product. The voicings are absolutely different from anything you've seen or heard from WGS in the past, and we absolutely compete with the market leaders with this grouping of products.
That's very cool. Yeah, it's nice to kind of see, like, it's in the guitar industry in general, and I think it's actually changing a lot right now. But as a whole, is very backwards looking, and traditionally has been. And I understand why, because there's some amazing products back then, and amazing, players that made great sounds with them, and so we all drool over 65 Strats, like. How could you not, right? But like at the same time, I do like that, especially, in the effects and some of the other, things are, they are pushing things forward into like, when I'm talking to some of these pedal companies in particular, I tell them, when we're trying to come up with something new, I'm like, okay, you need to make something that cannot be reproduced in a Helix.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, oh. Like, because otherwise, there's no reason for you to, continue to exist, honestly. Because those platforms, I don't really care for them. I'm not super. I mean, I should say, I don't get super excited about the multi effects. They don't get my heart pumping.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But I do understand their usefulness.
Sure.
So I think, we need to be able to do things that they can't do. And so it's nice to see like something as traditional as a speaker company being approached with sort of that same mindset. I think that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. I think there's, when I was at Celestion, I had, over 60 accounts, and I'm still in touch with, just about all of them. And some of them have, inspired me to kind of implement certain things with these drivers, and,
Oh, awkward pause. I could see it. It was on the tip of his tongue. He wanted to get it out, and then had maybe thought better of it. I don't know where he was going with it.
There's, like everybody has their own sound in their head, and tone is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
So versatility is key with a component like this. Having this component being able to pair well with, KT88s, EL84s, whatever circuit it's being paired with, cabinet combinations and 6, 7, 8 string guitar. It's key that these speakers are flattering and pair well with the rapidly changing genres and instruments that are out there.
Right.
So I have a lot of friends that, they're, even though they're into metal, they'll have a really nice classical nylon string, and they'll have a telly, and they're playing all these different styles. It's, the one trick pony musician. That's, you don't really see that. People are so much more open-minded these days.
Well, it's boring.
Right. And it's really, we all benefit from that. We benefit from the music they create, and we benefit from the guys that are at the soldering station making gear for us. It's a win.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's great having you on. We've gotten to that hour mark, and I still have yet to ask like the most important question. So,
Briefs.
This may, like I've said before, may make or break the company. So be careful with how you answer it.
Okay.
No pressure. No pressure.
Awesome.
What kind of pizza do you like?
Oh, so okay. So my boss he's on the dark side of that question.
Oh no.
He is. He likes the pineapple on the pizza. He does that.
David.
Yeah.
Oh,
David.
I'm
Oof.
so disappointed. Oh man. All right. Well, no one's perfect.
No. So yeah, I don't. We agree on many things, but that's one thing we don't agree on.
Yeah. So you're not a pineapple fan.
I'm not a pineapple fan. So locally, I think I've seen you post about flying pie.
Flying pie's not bad. Yeah.
It's okay.
Not bad.
It's a heavy slice. I have one slice, and I need to lay down for a while.
They put a lot into it. I
joke.
like a lot of things about it. I also don't like a lot of things about it.
Right.
So
right.
it's solid, but yeah. Anyway.
Hogan's Goat.
Hogan's
Goat.
I haven't had that.
Oh, you have to have Hogan's Goat.
Okay.
Phenomenal.
Where's that?
Oh, is it off Sandy? I think it's right off Sandy near Gabizon.
Okay.
Another restaurant, which is really good, but Hogan's Goat, excellent.
Okay. I've never heard of that one. So
yeah, you have to get down there.
Wow.
It is phenomenal.
That's done. Okay, will do.
Well, here's some that I have.
What's that like for the listeners? Because we're turning this into a Portland podcast.
It's so I'm from the East Coast. I'm from New York, so it has that authentic New York thing.
Okay.
And the service there is great. The guys there are great. Good tap list. It's excellent.
Okay.
Absolutely.
New York style. So that we are one. we're together.
But I was really surprised at how much good pizza was in Portland. I mean, it's not like there's just one or two places. There's a lot of good pizza in Portland.
There is. Did you see that article floating around where it was I can't remember the guy's name, but he's a pizza consultant, and I follow him on Instagram. He said in his opinion that Portland, and I disagreed with him at first, and I still do, because New York. Let's be real, New York pizza.
It's
they
so got good. It right. And I hate to say it, Jersey too. I moved when I was in Jersey for 5 years. They also had excellent pizza. Yeah,
so I'm all about those East Coast pizza. I mean, I also like wood-fired, like Italian style pizzas.
Yeah, make a little char on it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But I really like the East Coast style pizzas, and I did a little exploration a few weeks ago with my buddy Jess, and we found checkerboard pizza. You had checkerboard?
No.
It's it's part of Ken's Artisan, family.
Okay. Yeah.
But checkerboard is more like New York style.
Okay.
And it's in that Pine Street Market.
All
you Portlanders are just loving this right now, and everyone else is like, this is so boring. But checkerboard pizza we went to Escape from New York. I don't know if you've been there.
Is that on Belmont?
That's in like Northwest, off of like 23rd.
Okay.
And so that one was solid. We went to checkerboard. Was mind blown.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah.
And do you like Ken's?
I like Ken's too.
Okay.
Ken's is different though.
It's different.
But checkerboard is more his East Coast thing, and just so good.
Okay, thinner crust.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then we went to my other favorite one, which is Scotty's off of Division.
I've been to Scotty's twice. It's not bad, but
I like Scotty's.
Everybody always talked it up to me, and I just don't see it.
Oh, man, I love Scotty's. Checkerboard. So checkerboard's got better flavor. Scotty's has the correct. This is the nerdiest thing, but I really do think about pizza this deep. Like, Scotty's has the right amount of dip. You know how you fold the pizza,
yeah,
and and
tip
the tip kind of goes
down a bit, yeah.
And you can just eat it.
Sure.
So checkerboards, the whole thing kind of drips, but the overall flavor is better.
Okay.
But Scotty's has the correct form factor.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it because even the guy at Hogan's Goat asked me if I like Scotty's. I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, really? But he was telling me about Handsome Pizza, which I haven't been. There's a few that I really want to check. Handsome, Pizza Jerk, and Lovely's. Which Lovely's is definitely a frou-frou shishi pizza, but
that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah. We deserve nice things every once in a while.
That's right. I'm with you on all that. I did have Pizza Jerk back in the day before it caught on fire and closed.
Oh, that's right.
And then I had a weird. I wasn't thinking. I had a weird pie. It was great. It was delicious, but it wasn't a good example of. Okay. I had their clam pizza.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had a
white sauce.
They had a white sauce clam pizza, and it was delicious. It was kind of like eating clam chowder.
Yeah, right.
I'm a big seafood guy too, so. But it wasn't a good barometer for how good their pizza was.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
So. I've heard it's awesome. So, yeah. There you go, everyone. You just got our list of Portland pizza places that are good.
Well, Pizza Shoals, I mean, overrated.
I agree. Overrated. I like it.
I like it, but the crust is like 3 inches wide, which takes up a lot of edible pizza real estate.
Yeah,
You're getting a bit bamboozled by the shishi hipster pizza. That's not cool.
Yeah. We got a place here in town in Oregon City, Mi Familia, which is on Main Street. I think it's different, but it's kind of in that that ballpark. Way easier to get into, obviously, and like so good. Like, and it's if you want frou frou pizza, it's a good place to go.
Have you had Baby Doll?
I've not had Baby Doll yet.
Baby Doll is excellent.
Okay.
And they took over. There was a bar next door called Bonfire. They took over that space, so they got
more space.
Huge space.
Yeah.
And one half is like a bar where there's no minors.
Mm-hmm.
They'll bring you the pizza's excellent. Atlas on the Vision is pretty solid too.
Yeah,
Atlas isn't bad.
See,
a lot of good pizza.
He said Portland was America's best pizza city, and while I don't know if that's 100% accurate, we do got
top 3, I think.
We got a solid. Yeah,
it's up there.
Yeah,
they're doing our Taste Buds.
Yeah.
What is it? Multnomah Village? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think so.
Multnomah Village.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
All right. Well, there you go, everyone. You just got vomited.
Right, I gotta go eat.
That's all you listen to this podcast for anyway, right?
All right. Thanks for having me on, Blake. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you very much, John. So, we'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah. If anybody's got any questions, I can be reached at john@wgsusa.com. Feel free to email me, and I'll respond the best I can.
All right. Sounds good. All right. For John, this is Blake, and as always, folks, good luck and good tones. I had a great time talking to John, and hopefully we can do it again sometime. And if you enjoyed that conversation as much as I do, you can get more. We talked more, yes, on Patreon. So you go to patreon.com/tonemob. For as little as $5 a month, you get extra Tone Mob episodes every week. That's right, more of this that you just listened to. And you must enjoy it, because you listened to the whole thing. And if you didn't enjoy it, I don't know why you're still listening, because that sounds miserable. I would never do that to myself. I don't know where I'm going with that. But yeah, patreon.com/tonemob. You can look at the different levels, see if anything works for you. And at the $5 level is where you start getting extra content, extra this in your ears. So thank you very much for all of you listening, everyone tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you could just help me out and tell a friend about this show. If you could just tell one friend, that would be awesome. I know that there's a lot of podcasts out there, and there's a lot of things competing for your time and your ears, and I really, really appreciate that you took the time to listen to this one. So until next week, I think that's all I got for you. So take care. I'll talk to you next time. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.